So these will be online later today. All right, first one, true or false? False. Why is it false? Let's take a look. What is the identity, the original one? Tangent squared. Tangent squared x plus 1 is equal to, you said secant squared x? Okay, so if I got it to 1 minus secant squared equals, well, if I got tangent squared by itself, what would I do? Subtract the what? Tangent squared x equals secant squared x minus 1. Is that the same as 1 minus secant squared? No. If I were to flip this, 1 minus secant squared x, what would that do to the tangent? Make it negative. So this is true and this is true, neither of which was given to you. So what would we say the answer is for number 1? False. Questions on that one? All right, next one. Cosecant of negative theta. What does cosecant do with the negative? Absorb or kicks it to the front? So this is saying negative cosecant theta. Is that equal to positive cosecant theta? No. So true or false? False. Cosecant of negative theta equals negative cosecant theta, not positive cosecant theta. Do you guys see that? Okay. This next one, 3, true or false? True. Why? Is multiplication commutative, meaning A times B is B times A? Can I move things around? So could I write this as 8 times 2 times cosine x times secant x? Is that exactly the same thing as that there? Yes. 8 times 2 is what?
16.
And what's cosine times secant?
1.
Because they are reciprocals of each other. And so 16 equals 16. True or false? That is true. Questions on 1, 2, or 3? No questions? All right. Simplify. Cosine squared x minus 1. What does that equal? Sine squared x? I heard somebody saying negative. What's the original identity? Sine squared x plus cosine squared x equals 1. Any suggestions on what to do? To get cosine and 1 on the same side, what would I do? Subtract the cosine. Okay, so it's kind of like the last one that we just talked about. Equals 1 minus cosine squared x. I have cosine squared x minus 1. So if I flip this on the negative, cosine, or if I divide both sides by negative, however you want to think of it, what does it equal? Do you guys agree if I divided this by a negative, that positive 1 becomes negative, and the negative cosine squared becomes positive? So what's the final answer then for cosine squared x minus 1? Negative sine squared x. So no when it's positive, no when it's negative. Okay, next one. Secant of negative x. What does secant do with the negative? What is it? Absorbs it, because secant's the reciprocal of cosine. It doesn't change to cosine, it stays secant. It just absorbs the negative. Cosecant's the reciprocal of sine, so what does cosecant do with it? Kicks it to the front again, but it stays cosecant. Secant stays as is, cosecant stays as is, it's just what happens with the negative. Times 1 over. This is a complementary cofunction. What happens? What's cosine's cofunction? You either add co or take off co. It's sine of x because the complement of 90 minus x is x. Questions so far? All right, how do I simplify this even further? What do we do? Okay, so she's saying change this to sine and cosine. Is that what you're saying? All right, so secant is what? 1 over cosine x, and then negative 1 over sine x times 1 over sine x. Shall we clean this side up first? How do I clean that up? I multiply by the reciprocal, so that's 1 over cosine x times negative, don't forget that negative, negative what? Over 1. Can I combine this into one fraction? Negative sine x over cosine x times 1 over sine x. We're getting a little better here. What's going to happen next? Will they reduce? Now, if you leave on the test negative 1 over cosine x, what did I tell you is going to happen? You're going to get marked down. Don't leave it as a fraction. If 1 over what is 1 over cosine? So if 1 over cosine secant, what's negative 1 over cosine? Negative secant. Final answer. How'd you guys do on that one on your own? Got it? Okay. Next one. Any suggestions?
Use the identity.
Use the identity is what he said. So 1 minus cosecant squared is what? Look. Good job. Good job. She said negative cotangent. Can you see that cosecant squared minus 1 is cotangent? So if you flip it, 1 minus cosecant squared would be negative. Does everybody see that? Cotangent squared x over negative cotangent squared x. What does that reduce to? Negative 1. Questions? All right, next one, verify the following. That means to prove we're trying to get one side to look like the other. When we're verifying or proving, can we manipulate both sides? No. What side shall we pick? Now, when you're taking the test, do you have to bubble in the side you're picking? Yes, bubble, box, highlights.
We have to?
Yes, I told you guys that. I did, right?
Alright.
Yes, yes. Okay.
It's like a recommendation.
No. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that since it seems like not everyone understood when I said it in notes a week or two ago. When you're taking the test, you need to bubble or box or highlight the side you are picking to manipulate.
We have to?
You have to.
Okay.
Because when I grade, and especially if you're like, oh, I'm going to change, I need to know, these are hard to grade, guys, because I have to check every single little step for every single problem for every single kid. Takes a while. I could nice try. All right. Any suggestions on what to do here? Okay, she said sine and cosecant are reciprocals. Do we agree? Yes. So what does that multiply to? Plus, do we have anything for sine squared over cosine squared? Tangent squared. And is 1 plus tangent squared an identity? Yes. 1 plus 10. It's flipped on the plus sign. Does that matter? No, that's not negative because when you flip on a positive, addition's commutative. So what's 1 plus tangent squared? Secant squared equals secant squared. Here's another thing you have to do on the test. You box in when you are done. Telling me you're done. This is not your answer. When I grade, I'm going to be looking for all this stuff in here. This tells me that you're done. You didn't get stuck. You're done. How'd you guys do on this one? That one was easy. All right. Let's continue. Pick a side, right side or left side? Which side? Left side? Don't forget, I'm going to repeat again, you bubble in, you box in, you highlight the side you are picking. Those of you that have tried, anybody tried and get it? This one, number 8. Yeah, what did you guys do? Like distribute the exponent or write it twice in FOIL? Okay, so sine x. Is it okay if I distribute the exponent? No, it's not. Good job. All right, and then you did double distribution here. Now, are the middle terms going to cancel out on this one? Be careful with that. A lot of kids get carried away and, oh, middle terms cancel out. That's only when one is a minus and one is a plus. That's not the case here. They're both negative because it's quantity squared. So that gives me sine squared x minus sine cosecant, which is minus Good job. Minus 2 sine x cosecant x. And then at the very end, plus or minus cosecant squared. Plus cosecant squared x. All right, any suggestions? Okay, so you're saying these right here are reciprocals. Do you guys agree? All right, so I have sine squared x minus, what if this is 1, what am I left with? 2. Good job. Minus 2 plus cosecant squared x. Okay, do I have a 2 anywhere in the answer I'm trying to get? No. Sine squared is not there, cosecant squared is not there. Any suggestions on what to do? Change sine squared to what? 1 minus cosine squared x. Do you guys agree with that? Okay, the minus 2 is still there. And then plus, and are you guys suggesting I change cosecant squared x as well? Okay, what does that change to? Okay, now is it, I at least have cosine squared and cotangent squared, so I'm in the right, going in the right direction. So this changed to this, the sine squared, and the cosecant squared changed to that. And what do we do next? Okay, I have negative cosine squared x, and then I have positive 1, negative 2, and a positive 1. What happens there? Right, because 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 and negative 2, it's gone, it's 0. So plus cotangent squared x, and is that pretty much what I need? Yes? Positive cotangent squared x minus cosine squared x equals what I was trying to prove. Cotangent squared x minus cosine squared x. You box it in, telling me you are done with the problem. Make sure you do that on the test as well. This is exactly what your test should look like tomorrow. You bubble in the side you are picking, you are choosing to manipulate all your work, and then you box in. Again, this box in is not your answer. This is telling me you're done. The workspace in there is all of that is your answer. It's a long answer on this one. Got it? All right. Okay. This one was on the quiz. Do you guys remember that? It was the one, I think it was the last one. I gave everyone grief, and everyone was like, I don't know what to do. And I gave you some hints on how to recognize it on the test. Does anybody remember what the hints were? Yes. Are these conjugates of each other? Yes. So when you see this on the test, should you process right away this is a conjugate problem? Please do. Do not miss this one. It's really easy, but it's most missed because kids just forget how to use the conjugate. What do I what side were we picking? That side? Okay, so what do I multiply top and bottom by? Good job. Top and bottom by secant x plus tangent x. Did anybody do this one? Do this step? Yes? Okay. So 1 times that is going to stay as is, secant x plus tangent x. Now, on the denominator, are these the conjugates where the middle terms cancel out? Yes. Yes, because one's a minus, one's a plus. What's secant times secant? And what's going to happen with the middle terms? They're gone. So then I'm left with negative tan times positive tan, and that gives me negative tangent squared x. Is secant squared minus tangent squared an identity? What does it equal? 1. So I'm left with secant x plus tangent x over 1, and is that what I was trying to prove? Yes. Secant x plus tangent x equals secant x plus tangent x. We box it in, saying that we are done. Exactly what your test should look like. You bubble in the side you are manipulating, you do all your work, all of this is your answer, and then you're telling me you're done. All right. Questions? All right. How are you guys doing so far? Did you guys do pretty well so far? Pretty good? Yeah? All right. What do I add to both sides on this one? 4. And after I add the 4, you're going to do what? Divide by 2? 2 secant x equals 4. She said divide both sides by 2. What does secant x equal? If you don't like working with secant, take the reciprocal of both sides. What's the reciprocal of secant? What's the reciprocal of 2? All right. What's your reference angle? Cosine of what angle is 1/2? 60 degrees. Do you guys agree with that? Is 60 degrees one of the answers in this particular problem? Yes, because 1/2 is positive. So quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. Remember here that's telling you you're going from 0 to 360. You're going all the way around, not subtracting down to negative 60. So 60, comma what? 300. Does that make sense? Yes? All right. Questions on that one? Next one, any suggestions? Okay, did I hear subtract? Get it over to one side? Okay, so sine squared x. What should I put first? The -4 or the plus -3 sine x? -3 sine x minus 4 equals 0. Suggestions for the next step? Okay, I heard factor and I heard substitution. So what have I told you guys? If you can factor without substitution, go for it. If you like substitution, use it. Any suggestions on how I do it? Factor? No one's going to stop and say substitution? No. All right. If you use substitution, go ahead and go for it. Sine x times sine x is sine squared x. I'm going to be using 4 and 1. One's positive and one's negative, and it has to add up to -3. -4, +1. Let's check. -4, +1. Does it give me the -3 in the middle? Bless you. Okay. Sine x equals 4. Sine x equals -1. Did anybody use substitution and get in the same place at the end? Yes? Okay, good. Use substitution. There's nothing wrong with it. I love it. And when I'm grading, I look for it. And if you go without it, that's perfectly fine as well. All right. When is sine of x equal to 4? Never. If you put 4/1, bless you, because it's not on the unit circle, does it make sense that the opposite side is bigger than the hypotenuse? That doesn't make any sense, so this part is no solution. Is sine x ever -1? So does this part have a solution? So when you're writing your answers on the answer column for the test, will you put no solution? No, because there is a solution here, so when I check your work, I will see that you got no solution on this part. All right, there's only one place between 0, where is it at? Between 0 to 360 where sine is -1. What is it? 270. We're good? Okay, questions on that one? Okay, next one. Suggestions? Yes?
I actually have a question. For on the test, can we use radians? Would that be
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
So if you wanted here, what would you put? 3 pi over,
pi over 2?
same thing here. For 60, you would do pi over
Pi over 3.
pi over 3, and for 300, what would that be?
That would be 5 pi over 3.
5 pi over 3. Good job. Yes. Okay. Number 12. Suggestions from anyone? Move the 1 over. Do you guys agree with her? 2 sine squared x. What goes next? The -1 or the minus sine x? -1. All right. Substitution. Or there's a 2 in the front. Do you guys want me to use substitution since I didn't on the last one? Yeah. 2u squared. I had a few yeses, so I'm using it. I didn't write it down yet, but what did I let u equal? Sine of x. So 2u squared minus u minus 1. Double bubble. 2u and u. 1 and 1. According to this, are my two signs going to be like plus, plus, minus, minus, or is it going to be one of each? You just have to figure out which one's plus, which one's minus. This one here is plus, the second one is, let's see, -2, +1. Does it give me -1 in the middle? Yes? All right. What does u equal here when you solve it? U equals -1/2. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it back in. Sine equals -1/2. And sine equals what? 1. Okay. Do you guys see how that worked? I plugged it. I solved for u zero product property. Got u by itself. I ran out of room, so I put u equals -1/2 as sine x equals -1/2. U equals +1 as sine of x equals 1. Okay. Sine of what angles? Ignore the negative. Sine of what angles 1/2? No one knows? Sine of what angle is 1/2? 30 degrees. Do you guys agree? Okay. Is 30 degrees one of my answers? No, because it's negative. Which two quadrants is sine negative? 3 and 4. Thank you. All right, so what is 30 degrees in quadrant 3? What is it? 210. And what is it in quadrant 4? All right, and then sine of x is +1 where? 90 degrees? Is it 0? Let's see. He's at 0. It is 1, 0. And we're looking for when the y value is 1. So is it 0 or 90? 90. And again, if you want to use radians, you can. Questions? Did anybody get that one on their own? Good, good, good. All right, 13. Suggestions. Okay. This one looks very different, like say from 11 or 12, because even if I'm going to get everything to one side like you guys have been suggesting, even if I get everything to one side, it's still not factorable. Did I do that correctly? Plus and then minus? Why that's still not factorable? Different functions? I have a sine squared and a cosine, can't factor that. Now, did you tell me what to change? Oh, because the cosine isn't squared. Well, not just because of that, because this would have to be sine in order for me to do double bubble, or this cosine squared, or 2 cosine squared in order for that to be a 1. Any suggestions? Okay. Now you said change the sine squared. Why sine squared and not cosine? Did you guys hear her? She said because you cannot change the cosine because it's not squared. Do you guys agree with that? Okay, 2 parentheses, and then plus cosine x minus 1 equals 0. What does sine squared x change to? Be careful. 1. Sine squared is going to be 1, and I'm going to move this guy over, so it's going to 1 minus cosine squared. Does everyone agree with her? Yes? What am I going to have to do with this 2 sitting out front? Distribute. 2 minus 2 cosine squared x plus cosine x minus 1 equals 0. I know we've done one like this in homework because I remember when I did it, I marked it and I told you guys to mark it as a test question so you remember to come back and study. Before I go any further, was anybody able to get at least this far, if not further, on their own? Good. Okay. Can I move things around and combine like terms? What should go first? The negative 2 cosine squared x. What should go second? And like terms at the very end, what are they? What does it come out to be? Plus 1 equals 0. I do not want to factor with that leading guide negative. I have a few options. Because it's 0, because it equals 0, I can divide everything by a -1. What else could I do if I wanted to? Move everything to the other side, or factor out a -1. Totally up to you guys. Any suggestions? Move everything to the other side? You concur? Okay, so I'm gonna add 2, I'm gonna put the equals there, add 2 cosine squared x minus cosine x and then minus 1 to the other side, leaving me with 0 on this side, positive 2 cosine squared x minus cosine x minus 1. Did anybody get that by dividing both sides by negative 1? Same thing? Maybe 0 on the other side. Does it matter which side 0 is on? No. Okay. Substitution or no substitution? No substitution? Okay, 2 cosine x and a cosine x, because 2 cosine times cosine is 2 cosine squared x. Do you guys agree? I know it's going to be 1 and 1 because that's the only way to multiply to 1. What I have to figure out is my signs. Are they both positive, both negative, or one of each? One of each. You guys decide, is it minus 1 here and then plus 1, or plus and then minus? You're saying minus here? Plus here? Minus there? Let's see, that's going to give me negative 2, positive 1 will give me the negative 1 in the middle. Yep. Zero product property, cosine x equals negative 1/2, cosine x equals 1. Did anybody do this one with u substitution? Did you get to this point eventually? Okay, so it works either way. You do what works best for you. Cosine of what angle is 1/2? 60. Is 60 degrees going to be one of my answers? No, because it's negative. Which two quadrants is cosine negative? 2 and 3. What is 60 degrees in quadrant 2? And what is 60 degrees in quadrant 3? 2 what? 240? And when is cosine 1? When is the x, at what quadrantal is the x value positive 1? What is it? Is it okay if you put 360s, and 0 and 360 are coterminal angles? No, right here equal to 0, not to 360. Okay, so this right here is our set of answers. Questions? All right, last one. Cosine 2x plus secant cosine 2x equals 0. Suggestions? GCF, what comes out? Cosine 2x parentheses, what's left here? 1 plus secant x equals 0. Agree or disagree? Right? Okay. Can you guys say what you start to say about it not being squared? Right here, 1 plus secant? Okay, so in order to use identities, it would have to have a minus sign anyway, but even without, if this was 1 minus secant, could I change that to one of my Pythagorean identities? No, because this has to be squared. Okay, can I use the zero product property? Heck yeah, you can. I like it. Cosine 2x equals 0. I'm going to solve this one. Secant x equals what when I set this equal to 0? Negative 1. Okay, take the reciprocal of both sides. What's the reciprocal of secant? What's the reciprocal of negative 1? Negative 1. All right, let's do that one first since that one's a little easier. What is cosine of what angle is negative 1? When is x negative 1? 180. All right. What does this mean? This is the one that kids have been struggling with. We go around how many times? This right here, twice, 2 times. Okay, so this, you don't have to do it anymore if you can do without it, but we did cosine theta originally. We said theta equals 2x. And then just basic, what two angles is cosine 0 at? 90 and 270. Is that it? Are we done? No, this is the first set. Remember, theta was originally 2x. This is the first set. How many more times do I need to go? I need a total of 2, so how many more times? 1 more time, a total of 4 answers. Yes? Okay, so here's the first set. This is going to be the second set. What do I do to each angle to get the second time around? Add 360. And what's 90 plus 360? 450. And what's 270 plus 360? And then I take each one and divide it by 2. Why 2? Because I went 2 times around. Now, kids will say, well, I only have to divide these 2 by 2 because those are the only 2 that are bigger than 360. No, all of them, even the first set. What's 90 divided by 2? 45. What's 270 divided by 2? 135. What's 450 divided by 2? I heard somebody whisper it. 450 divided by 2 is 200 and what? And 630 divided by 2 is 315. Don't forget, decimals are your friends. We had some of those in notes. If you divide and get a decimal, that's perfectly fine. It didn't happen here, but it can happen and it's okay. Questions? How did you guys do overall? Pretty good. If this was a test, would you have gotten an A? No? When you did it on your own, no? You didn't get an A? Yes.
Is there like any way you could just let us use the index card on this test? Just to put like